All right. Happy Monday, everybody. Happy Monday and welcome, welcome, welcome. This is a special edition. This is our review for Heart and Hustle. And I decided to do this today instead of Sunday and instead of doing Grace and Gossip, just because I felt like this week's episode of Heart and Hustle was so just powerful and we needed to talk about it. So I wanted to have that conversation tonight. I also invited a guest because seeing the conversation between Labrina and Khloe, I wanted to make sure, and I realized that it was very, 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 very heavy. And I wanted to make sure that as opposed to us just talking about this as entertainment and a way to, just kiki about the girls, I wanted to have a really substantial conversation so that we're not being judgmental, because when I first saw it, I was super thrown off. So I invited a friend to this show, or this channel rather, and a personal mentor and coach of mine, Coach Latonia. I invited her to join me as we get into this conversation about Heart and Hustle. Welcome, Coach Latonia. Welcome back.
Thank you.
How are you this Monday evening? I guess we're at Monday evening.
Yes. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Good. Well, I reached out to you immediately as I was watching the show, as I got finished watching that episode, because I've been watching Heart and Hustle and I like the show. Been watching it. We've been having great conversations about it. I feel like it's more relatable than some of the other shows with a female cast. I think, you can kind of see yourself at certain points in life through a lot of the women. And I know, the conversation about Black women showing up and trying to be a superwoman and powering through and things that we see Elena talking about in the first episode, I immediately, connected with that. I think I'm in a different place, learning how to, be in a different place, but I definitely recognized and realized that. So I reached out and you were like, I'm watching the show. I've been watching the show. I'm familiar with it. So before we get into reviewing this episode, what has been your thought process on Heart and Hustle up until now?
Yes, I absolutely have been watching, because whenever we put the South on display, I don't know, I kind of feels close to my heart. And usually the first seasons are the most authentic. The very first season, that's when you really get to meet the real cast members, and then the changes start after. But what I've liked about it is they really are presenting as real women with real life issues, without, a lot of, there is the glam that's there, but it still is very centered on family dynamics, and also owning some of those poor choices that you make out of trauma or breakdown in early on in life. So I like that they're putting that on the table.
Very much. I mean, I think that's one of the lessons we see in life all the time, is that nothing starts right here. Like whatever these issues are, they started someplace else. And so the very first episode, like I mentioned, we saw Elena, beautiful woman. And I feel like everything now, Coach Latonia, I feel like we're so focused on the external. So if we look good, then people assume we're good, and we assume we're good because we look good. So Elena's very beautiful. She's a makeup artist. In fact, she knows how to make everything look beautiful. But it was clear in that very first episode, there was a lot of pain and a lot of trauma behind all that beauty, right?
Yes.
And in this episode, we see a conversation between her and her mother where she's kind of confronting her mother about the fact that she doesn't feel like her mother is as open and really wants to have real conversations. But they also acknowledged in that conversation that her father, she grew up in a house where the father was an alcoholic.
Yes.
And so he was not present. So she hesitates to tell her mother the depth of her and her husband's disconnection. And she said that she knows her mother doesn't want that, because even though her mother dealt with an alcoholic husband, you can see that she still kind of wants everything to be okay.
Yes, yes.
Was that your thought process with the conversation with Elena and her mom?
Definitely. When we start talking about shows, depending on what city that they're in, we have to consider the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And this is deep in Southern culture. Is don't talk about the business outside of the house, even if it's hurting you.
Mm-hmm.
And also this speaks to generations, because we have to look at the culture, and then we have to look at the generation. So that generation oftentimes did whatever they had to do in order to get whatever they needed at the time, because during that time period, we're talking about women who were not that far from a generation of women who couldn't have bank accounts, couldn't buy their own property. So your livelihood or your security was determined through a man, or having a man in the house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about Elena's mother's generation, who she was raised by.
Right, 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 right.
And so now you see a younger generation that they know that that's not something that aligns with them. And oftentimes, when we start having healing conversations with ourselves, we want to go have conversations with the source of the upset. And oftentimes that's a big mistake, because when you start doing the work, your mother or father may not have agreed to do the work that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you don't get the response that you want from the mother or father, sister, or sibling, this could even be a sibling,
Mm-hmm.
it can oftentimes be a setback. So I oftentimes, when I'm working with someone who is having these awarenesses and they want to confront their mother, I ask them to hold it.
Mm-hmm.
Hold it to a time when you can get to neutral,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where you can manage your expectations, and you aren't triggered or set back because you are looking for a response. For instance, a woman may need nurture and affirmation from their mother, and if the mother cannot give it, does not have the capacity, it can be a re-wounding.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yes. And yes. Yes. My first thought, I totally agree with everything you said, because you could see that she was hoping for something different with her mother's response. When she said, well, that she experienced infidelity early on. And I also want you to speak to that, because I know a lot of men have a hard time understanding how women hold on to pain for so long. So it's like, well, this happened. You guys have been together 15 years. This happened before you said I do, or at least that's what she's telling us, right? That's what she's allowing the cameras in on. We don't know. But how does that pain, and even some girlfriends would be like, girl, you need to get over that. And her mother said, well, you'll be surprised at what you can handle. And Elena says, that doesn't sit well with me. But this is something that she has not vocalized until recently in her marriage, or maybe she's vocalized it, but she hasn't made a point to let him know that this is still painful for her. So what are your thoughts on that? Because like I said, I know a lot of times, specifically in our community, it's get over it. Get over it. Are you going to forgive him? You're going to stay? Well, then move past it. How do you move past it? And what do you do with that pain? Because it didn't go anywhere. It popped up 15 years later.
Yeah. So each person really is a case study, because there is no one size fit all in terms of this, because in this case, we're talking about a person who has made everything pretty, and is going through some type of internal process where that's no longer okay with her. Now, the question is she going to be able to deal with the ugly part of telling her truth? That seems like where she is. Can I deal with the fallout of saying what I really feel, and am I prepared to take the next most appropriate step? Now, it looks like she's preparing, because she did say that they were together every day, and the other addition of them launching a business and doing well. And that's tricky. You know, that's another tricky thing. When you start to, your identities become enmeshed, we call it enmeshment. And you really don't know who you are. This is another cultural thing. Like when you don't really know who you are, and you become defined by being a married woman. I got married.
Yeah.
Now, did I know who I was when I got married? Possibly not. But the culture rewarded it, and then you start to acquire things. Now there becomes a whole appearance, now still appearance with things, but they also had things and success. So she's navigating like several layers of, you know, authenticity and that, and what do I do if I tell my truth? I think that there's also some deeper withholds. I won't say that this applies to her, but this thing, this cheating thing can go very far because they're young. They're not they're not that old, really.
Yeah.
And so sometimes women grow up in the marriage. Who you were when you got married and what you stood for, thought you could tolerate, is not the same thing, especially when you can see your life without having to be codependent. That's probably where she and her mother are different.
Very much so, because I feel like I also got the feeling, Coach, that the mother is very pleased and proud of her daughter's success. And the mother was very much focused on, the most conversation and the most energy I got from the mom was, we got to get you in front of Beyonce. You know, we got to get, it's focused very much on the fact that the daughter has amassed this success in the beauty industry and trying to push her there. And I think I know from my own, and I'm definitely a generation past Elena. If you're just joining us, we're talking about, this is our review for Heart and Hustle. And I asked Coach Latonia to join me tonight because of the heaviness and the impact of this past episode. But we're talking about Elena's conversation with her mother. And the mother is very proud of her daughter. She's very, proud of her grandchildren. And I think one of the things that I've seen, and probably even been a little guilty of it myself, is you want your daughter to push through the pain and you want her to be successful because you want her to be good. But in that situation, I saw her leaning more to that conversation about, oh, we got to get you to Beyonce. You've done this, you've done that. And then Elena says, well, you really don't want to have the real conversation. You don't want to come over here and really hear. And I wondered do you think that's because the mother, it's a lot of times the mother is trying to protect the daughter from the truth.
Well, absolutely. Yes. And we, just because a mother is, let's say she's grown and maybe she raised her children, it doesn't mean that she is emotionally developed and has language to even talk through it. There are a lot of people who literally do not have language because they haven't talked about it. So there could be a lot of apprehension, particularly how deep this rabbit hole goes in terms of image. The funny thing is, in a lot of these small towns, people already know what's happening when you have somebody stepping out anyway. In the small towns, they call it paid in place, where, the people know who's running around and who's doing what. So then there's that element of shame, right? A lot of older women do have some shame about how long they stayed or what they tolerated, but I don't know that they have the concept of what their staying costs their daughters.
Right. So speak to that a little bit, because when the mother said, when they both acknowledged, and you can see them kind of both reflect and both probably see it from different perspectives of living in a house, and that being Elena's upbringing with a father that was an alcoholic and wasn't present in a positive way. And the mother, you could see the mother accepted that. But for Elena, she definitely has a different perspective on that. You could just see the difference in the way they were recalling how that happened. So what does that do to a daughter when the mother stays in something thinking that she's doing it probably for her children, but the daughter sees the mother constantly, put her head down and take something that is really hurting the entire family?
Well, so usually for a child who's in that circumstance, the child is making some decisions as they're assessing and looking on. Either they're saying, "I'll never deal with this," or "If that was me, I would." But the girl is also looking at what the mother is accepting and making some decisions about her value, even if it's on a subconscious level. That's why you have a lot of repeat behaviors in families.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen families where the women dealt with older men, and I've had clients where they recognized that they said they never would do it, but then they ended up doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are very specific things that we think it doesn't affect us, but it does. And I can say that even from my own story. But when you look at an alcoholic, now you're adding in a feeling of not being safe.
Mm-hmm.
And that can go layers. Like, there are layers about, what happens when someone is under the influence, from molestation to abuse to arguments or fighting, to just absolutely losing respect for the parent who not only is stumbling or not fully present to the having to adjust around an addict.
Mm-hmm.
What it does emotionally is you never feel safe at home. So oftentimes you develop a coping mechanism for who you are, and it carries over into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've adjusted so much until the coping mechanism becomes your identity. And okay, should I pause?
I was just like, oh, that is. I mean, I think that's kind of what we see here. We're talking about Elena. Just wanted to touch on this first, and her conversation with her mother. You said something. You said that she talks a lot about this empire, this beauty empire that she and her husband built, to where their identities have become enmeshed, and people see because the company was built on beauty and also this idea of relationship goals. We are the couple that is beautiful. We do everything together. We have this business together. And now she's trying to separate that because she's not okay with it. She is coming into her womanhood. What will it take, Coach Latonia, just from watching the show, what will it take for Elena to move past preparing to separate that and really get to a point where she's able to say, I'm going to make the best decision, regardless of what that decision is, for the marriage, and going to stand on my own? Because preparing, you could just see it in the way she's very sensitive. She's trying very diligently, and they're still in the home and they're still working together to an extent. He's in therapy. He's acknowledged going to therapy. He wasn't too eager to renew the vows, like the young lady suggested. But what is it going to take for Elena to really be able to push through? Because she still speaks very highly of being able to look the part and push through it and keep going, and not have any chinks in her armor.
When a person is invested in how it looks on the outside, that's where they get tested. So whether she's prepared or not, it is now out there in the world. Mm-hmm. And so this is, you and I talk about this privately all the time. When you put your marriage on reality TV, mm-hmm. the reality that you want, or the illusion that you want to keep up, that bubble can get bursted, because you don't even know, we really don't know the complexities of the marriage in the first place for me to give a solid therapeutic answer. But let's just say that there's something out there, skeletons. Sometimes a person like that ends up being tested where, like I said, where they're invested. So I could see a person, if you're invested in the look, it can create a situation where you find out information where you no longer can hide. You no longer can pretend. Now, if she's watching or she hears this assessment, it doesn't have to get there. If you make a choice up front, we're going to tell the radical truth to one another and work and to make a decision if we're going to work through this. And that is when that's going to be the key thing. And it's not a bad idea for couples who have certain levels of shame, guilt, and trauma to have therapy separately first. But at some point, you're going to have to come together. And then that's where a third party or two therapists can come together and have a joint session to put together some type of healing plan. That's what I would suggest for a marriage, is a healing plan. But the thing is, this is oftentimes where things get exposed, because if any party is unwilling to do whatever the exercises are, that's where everything can fall apart.
Ooh. You said a bunch of things. You're tested where you are invested. I think that is the tea that I clocked out of that, is where you have put your focus on, specifically if it's on shaky ground, is where you're going to be tested. And we definitely see that. Definitely, I give a lot of credit to her, because this is something I'm sure a lot of millennials are dealing with, because they have been so open. They have shared their lives and their information on social media. It's become like the thing to do to become this power couple or this boss chick. And so probably a lot of them are able to relate to what she's going through. Hey, Tina Bree, it's okay if you skipped an episode. We're going to catch you up, because we're talking a little bit about some of the things that's happened in the past. Let me see. I'm going to have Coach Latonia address. Hey, you there? One of our faithful viewers, she says, I don't know if I can feel sympathy for any of them, not seeking, fishing, but they sought clout via reality TV. Get your priorities straight.
I do agree, but we've seen people have great success, like Love and Marriage. Why would Martell and Melody lead with that? Who knows, right? But sometimes the audience is not aware how bad a person thinks they want this success. And I'm telling you, listen, that's a real good point. Hey, you there? Because I've had friends tell me they'll do anything. I want to be on reality. I'm like, you really do? You sure?
I feel like we're getting ready to talk about later on tonight. We're going to talk. Well, we're going to get into that last, because I literally was like, I cannot talk about this without Coach Latonia on here, because I was afraid my personal opinion would affect my ability to be objective of the conversation with Khloe. But to put the relationship, to be on reality TV and to have a storyline that makes you relevant, and that keeps the producers coming back to you. We see a lot of people doing things that are going to affect them, much later. And with Melly and Martell on Love and Marriage Huntsville, that's a perfect example of something that, yes, they did get TV. Yes, they did become top number one show on OWN, but look at the damage that has happened, and look at the damage that is still happening to that couple. And not that it wouldn't have happened, but we don't know that it would have played out like this, but we do know it's been amplified.
Absolutely.
And there are children involved. And so that's a good example.
So my answer is it's going to be amplified. It's amplified when you see it, when you see yourself on TV, and you see how you're responding to things, even in scene. Because mind you, there were scenes that did not make the cut. We don't know what made the cut in those conversations.
Right.
But when you see it, now you see yourself. Now, and I want to say this, right? A lot of people in the beauty industry, they look at their exterior, but they don't look into themselves. So just because a person is looking at themselves doesn't mean a person is looking in themselves. So don't assume that just because she's a beauty expert and that she's ever had to look at herself. So that's the first thing, is when you see yourself and how you responded and what you said, and Elena knows what what she's covering up.
Yeah.
And so that part starts, but now you're getting all the feedback.
And we don't know what you're ready for. But it seems that we're in a bad place as a society, as we're using our pain as a leverage for fame.
Yes.
And that feels very dangerous. But I want to move on because we've been on her for a while.
Okay.
There's so much in this show. I want to talk about Latoria briefly, because I can relate to her. Latoria is a publicist. She also has, you can tell she likes to make everybody happy and tie everything up neatly. But she actually brought the therapist to the group, and she was very honest about just some things that I feel like kind of were skipped over. It's just so much because you got 6 women. But when she mentioned in the conversation with Munira, where Munira was upset about Latoria saying that she was cutesy, Latoria acknowledged, I would have loved to have been cutesy. I was always seen as the bully because I was bigger, because she mentioned skin tone, very big triggers, with our community, but still very valid, still very real. But just because of her size, and then how she responds. But to me, because like I said, I know publicists, I actually know Latoria as well.
Okay.
Because I know that lifestyle of trying to make sure everybody else is happy and hiding kind of behind your job, right? Hiding behind the duty of pushing everybody else. We see her when she's hurt, bring everybody together and create some opportunities for other people to be healed, and then to honor these other women. But there's a lot in that conversation that she said, even about herself, and the fact that she has not been in a relationship. It feels to me, just watching her, that I can relate to that personality of pushing everything outward and not really, taking care of the little girl inwardly. I wondered what you thought of her first, that conversation that was, I feel like it was thrown out there and then we moved on, right? And then we see that she's having trouble with dating, but she doesn't seem to really like to focus on herself. She likes to focus on, let me serve, let me get busy, let me do something for the other ladies. And then when something does come up towards her, she just kind of backs away from it.
Well, I mean, if you really saw, she has a little nastiness to her, she can get a little nasty.
She did. There was no reason for her to ask Elena's husband if he wanted to do that vow renewal right then.
Yeah, no
reason for her to do that.
Yeah. So, I don't know if it's my spiritual eyes, when we put these shows together, right, we're looking at an archetype for each of the 6 women. And I think, I wonder, let me say this, I wonder if she got slid into this role because of her roundness and that she holds more of the mama, matriarch, nurturing energy. That does not mean that that's truly who she is. Right. It almost, because of the way she interacted and how quick she was getting ready to go there, I wonder if production had assigned her this particular role. We're going to highlight you and show you going to therapy, and then you're going to bring it up to the group. Because I wonder if it doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't even feel like she's really qualified to do it, because usually the person who's really sincere about keeping everybody together, they put their stuff out on the table.
That's true.
They're usually very forthcoming. They'll say, hey, listen, I messed up. This is my issue, or whatever. Yeah. So it feels like somebody put a battery in her back to do that, because when they had the conversation, although she was projected upon, the cutesy conversation was a projection onto her. See, people are not responsible for your triggers. So that was put on her. That was projected onto her. Because that story could have been like, we can say to our girlfriends sometimes, please don't call me that. That's a trick. Ooh, I'll tell you about it later. But please don't do that. But so your friend circle is not responsible for your triggers or your blow ups. You're
Say that.
responsible for your triggers or communicating what your triggers, your boundaries, your requests are. But we
Mhm.
immediately go to like attitude, you know. And so someone said when you were intentional. Now that's where I don't know where it was just like her being a little nasty about the second time. You know what I mean? That she kept on making little comments.
Mhm.
That's when it was like, now girl, what are you doing? You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But the first time they kind of bumped into each other and she felt some kind of, her friend felt some kind of way, it wasn't all on her, you know, at
Yeah,
first.
I agree. I agree. It was definitely, and when I interviewed Munira was, she already has a trigger about being young, looking young, and
Manera.
looking small, and people not taking her seriously. And so that well, I'm an engineer, and you're in a male dominated industry where they can be very dismissive, of females, specifically a young, attractive female. But that you can't be upset because you have what you call pretty privilege, and then get upset when I say, well, you look cute. And like I said, it was a cutesy is a trendy word. She
It
wasn't.
really, yeah, it is.
That was a lot, but I didn't think about what you said about them putting that on her, because I've been that person in my friend group that did bring a therapist in, but I also am the one that would be really open about my issues. First, like, girl, we need to fix this. This is crazy. I actually invited a therapist to a group of my alpha female friends because it was just constantly like this, and I'm just like, what are we doing?
Right. That's nice. That I love it when you can find a circle that will do that. But I do think like there was this rub like that was going on between them that I feel like it was something missing, like that's something that we did not see.
Right.
With that kind of escalated that really quickly. But I do think Ro, she seems to annoy people. She really does. There's something about her effect.
You mean Ro or Latoria?
Look,
Latoria is the publicist.
yes.
We go.
Latoria. Yes, Latoria, the
Latoria does put her foot in her mouth quite often.
She has a rub. There's a something that she says. And then I also get this just by how the conversation started with the therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't suspect that this is her first time having to deal with how people respond to her.
Yeah. I can see
I
that.
see that happening already
Mm-hmm.
in the dynamics with her and other people.
Yeah. I also don't think, and I've said this, these women were not friends before this show. They put them together and they're trying to make them. This is not an organic. No. Because you can tell, like, they just, they probably would not be all hanging out. But speaking of Ro, I want to go to her next. Trust me, we're going to get to Khloe in that conversation. But Ro has definitely kind of been on my heart because we saw her, she's very authentic, right? So she and Khloe are the authentic ones. They're going to say what they think. It may not be what you think you want to hear, but it's coming out. But we saw her be pushed and put into a situation that made her uncomfortable. And I remember when I did a review a couple of weeks ago when she was talking about the sex, and Latoria said, well, I don't want to talk about sex on camera.
Right.
And she said, girl, and she said, I'm a woman of God. Ro got extreme. She got triggered. And I'm like, if I say I'm a woman of God, that don't have nothing to do with you. I just may not want to talk about it. But she took it as, I can't talk around you and I don't feel comfortable. You're fake. She just created this entire thing. And then we see her this past week, the week before when she got into it I don't know why they brought that girl. I don't know why Khloe brought that girl to the thing. Production probably was trying to create that was weird.
I suspect that she was probably up to be a part of the main cast and wasn't. I suspect. You know how this goes down, Christal.
Yes, because I don't. That also would explain we don't need no new friends. Like you didn't make it. I'm sorry, but we ain't got no room for you here. 6 of us already. 6 big personalities already.
Yeah, and and that goes back to production too. They'll say, "Well, we're going to put you in this scene, but you got to bring it."
Yeah.
They will.
But you can tell that's what she was doing. She doesn't even, what she says doesn't even, and I'm talking about Shaniqua. She's just trying to stay on camera. Well, we're here again, Ro. Why do you want to talk to her? Why do you want to take a chance? Are we going to get a chance for you just performing with a big personality and then calling the girl a bitch? Like, what? You're trying to perform for the camera so that you'll get an invite back because you feel like this is your opportunity to get that back. What do you have to say about Rose, just her confession of really being from a different culture? She's from New York, very, very different East Coast and Southern women, very different. And a lot of things can be lost in translation just because the culture is so different.
Yeah.
Her trying to say that she's trying to be a more mature person, but she also, I do appreciate her authenticity.
Yeah. So I appreciate her authenticity too. And she's very clear that she probably is from a swing first culture. Ask questions later. And I do think if we were to see therapy with Ro, that just alone to hear her story, to understand her background, this could be a real opportunity for her to soften, and for us to be able to really understand the context, because clearly she's experienced a tremendous amount of trauma that has also identified who she is, and like you said, in terms of putting people into a circle, now she's being put into a circle. But of course, like somebody in the comments said, I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for some of them, because on some levels they're choosing it. They're choosing their curriculum to be seen. You're learning on the job. But you're not just learning how to be a reality star. Now you're learning how do I present? Because all of these women have brands. And so that's what's very interesting about this, because I think we need to know more about Ro.
Yeah.
A little bit more about what makes her like that, and the distrusting nature. But I also love, Christal, that, y'all who are watching, we have the girlfriend in the crew that just does not trust like that. And honestly, the girlfriend, when you become the higher you rise in terms of your executive circle, it is more and more difficult when you are an executive to be with other executive women and be vulnerable.
Yeah. But check this out. It's interesting that she's been in a male-dominated world of nightlife. So she don't really interact with women. She's mostly interacting with men, which can be sometimes men are easier to deal with when you have that. But then there's also then you also take it's a ditch on either side of the road, because you're not going to have some of the issues there are with females, but you have to keep up that hard exterior so that you are not taken advantage of in a different way. But for her to say she's usually around men, you could definitely tell that in the way she interacts and the way she presents, that she's definitely been mostly around men.
Yes. She does have a harder edge. And so the fact that she's willing, I do think that there is a woman who is like her that will benefit by saying, I don't have to be this way. I have an option. I have another option. What is my option? So she's almost presenting several. One, as a businesswoman. Two, as a mother. She's really invested about her relation, even though I think that the scene was quite produced. It just was not an authentic dialogue and scene. And then the third thing is, she's playing with the idea of dating. So that should be very interesting, what she attracts with that particular energy, because trust is going to come up again for her.
Oh yeah. If dating, that's going to be a huge problem. And we see with the previews for next week, she's not in a relationship, but she could potentially be pregnant. So that tells us that.
Well, But let me tell you something else. I don't know if y'all caught this. If you watching, to your viewers who were watching, I did not like the dialogue about LeBron James being her husband. Are you going to go on a date with that? To me,
Yeah.
that was tasteless, and I don't think it should have even been said. The man is married. And what are we saying here? What are we communicating here? Like, you could have chose anybody.
Yeah.
Did anybody else pick that up, or is it just me?
Y'all let us know in the comments. I thought it was very tasteless, and also just disappointing that we are teaching our young women that would even be okay to say about somebody that's married. You know, there's no respect, and he gets that a lot.
Unless she was talking about Bronny.
No, she wasn't. She was LeBron. I was like, this man has been. Cardi B done mentioned him in a whole song and said that she would, you know, she don't know what type of time Savannah's on, but she'll be down to deal with them. That is, somebody said, not another Portia. Leave people's husbands alone. This is the culture. Like, it's okay to say things like that, to joke like that, and that's definitely a problem.
But it's worth talking about on this space, because there is something happening in womanhood where I don't care how much money you have, if you don't have any type of morals, or you don't have any type of home training about, or decorum. Let's just go to decorum of how a single, like, first of all, one of the scenes you were talking about, what you say when you're in you're a single woman and you're in the company of couples. There's certain things that a woman just should not be saying to another woman's husband, period. It's certain things that does not come out your mouth to another woman's husband. You shouldn't be addressing him, or unless she asked you. That is not how, when you get together. This is how we feed the idea of don't bring single women around your marriage. This is how we get that, especially in the South. And how many of you all know this is true? They tell you. And who got in trouble for that? The gospel artist, I love her. She says that her single friends have to stay in a hotel.
Oh. I didn't hear that. I know Tabitha Brown says she don't want her, don't come around she had a single friend that was being very much too familiar with her husband, and she called her out. Kiki Shear, hey, you there?
That's right, Kiki Shear. Yes. Kiki said that.
She sure did. I do remember that now. But that's something that we don't talk about. You know, we do not talk about, and especially nowadays when things are way too common. Like, you don't say that about somebody's husband. It's just disrespectful. Right.
Even though it was the renewing the vows. Why are you asking them about renewing the vows? And that was also very shady, because you know this girl is going through something. Why would you do that? And that's what I'm talking about. See, passive aggressiveness is more dangerous than an aggressive row.
Yeah. And then the reality is, you have not even been in a relationship. So what are you doing? Why are you even commenting on their marriage when you are saying that you haven't even been in a relationship? You've been sad about it. You have no idea what that dynamic is. What are you doing? Why are you
right. So that's what I'm talking about with Latoria. She's not all innocent. And and so here it seems like we're having a conversation about appearances. Because even though you have one that is a makeup artist, you have another that's a publicist. And you know, publicists, with all due respect, you all know how to package things and clean things up, and you manage your
nice, nasty. It's where you can be nice, nasty, and hide behind the aesthetic of, I'm just putting this together. Oh, I was just trying to help you coordinate. Girl, she don't need you to help you coordinate that. That was inappropriate. She didn't need that. It was messy. And then it also, but what it did is it triggered Elena, because when he said no, you saw Elena couldn't even focus. She was just like, so she just caused dissension, and made it worse, which is not acceptable
in that house. And you know, a real alpha male will tell your girls, don't ask me any questions, and that creates a whole dialogue between the couple that if you've not been married, you don't know that you're doing that, or you do,
because I think she did.
I think
you may not know the level of irritation that you caused in that man, but you know you're wrong.
Yes.
And Marriott said Latoria hides behind her PR skills a bit. I think it comes with the position. But I want to play this clip, and then because I also want to ask you before we get to that, because this will be, I want to just get you to say it quickly. This show, we got girls, right? We got women, not girls, Black women. Online, there's constantly conversation about Black women, right?
Yeah.
And I saw recently Kelly Price went online and made some statements, vented about how Black women are the most disrespectful and hateful to, and it's interesting because I've been in the business for a long time. All I'm going to say is that there are numerous people who have had that experience via Kelly, right? So for her to be complaining, so I just wonder, hearing this, we see a lot of like mean girl energy on this show and other shows that are predominantly Black female cast, on all female cast, but we're just focused on us because that's what our concern is. What is that? Because even in this show, when Khloe said to Elena, "Your husband's not fine," I was like, what? Like, first of all, how dare you speak on somebody's husband? And her version, and then double down on it. Well, he's not fine, girl.
Oh yeah, honey. I would have said, well, why are you looking?
What are you even? What?
Why are you looking and assessing my husband?
Why, and why?
Yeah. So yeah, that was inappropriate, and that really could have been fighting words in some circles, to be honest with you. Yeah,
that's some facts. That was totally inappropriate. But that's nasty mean girl energy.
But you know, but a woman, I will say, always take note. If you are a wife, you take note of that. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't address it, you take note of that.
You would want to address it.
I will address it, but you take note of those types of things, because that's not a woman's woman. Mm-hmm. And that's something that you should know, because you can't raise another woman, but you certainly can address it and let them know that you see it.
And but it's interesting to me how those women are so sensitive. So you will say out with somebody, your husband ain't fine, and you know he's not fine. But then now we're getting ready to talk about your situation, and you're extremely sensitive to anything that has to do with you. I've always, what is that makes you so nasty towards others, but so overly sensitive with your own issues? It almost like, do you see yourself, or is it just narcissistic? What is that?
Yeah, definitely wounding. You know, some of the most wounded can be the most defensive, guarded, and nasty. And it does not give us an excuse. I want to capture what you said, because, you know, I don't just look at, you know, we've talked about this accountability thing in Black women for a very long time. It comes up in the conversation, but Christal, I really do think on a spiritual level, with where we are with things, it's up for healing. That's what Iyanla always says. When it comes, if it's in the chair, it's in the room. It's been in the chair a long time in the collective consciousness. You have this scenario coming up, that's come up. You have Kelly Price that has opened up a conversation. Now we have Tabitha Brown that has created another conversation that's happening in the collective. I have also seen some other conversations between dynamics we're going to get into with mother and son, but it's up. It's up big time, because it needs to be. What Kelly, you're right about. I've heard very similar, you know, in the business about Kelly, and many of them, to be honest. And I think that's what the issue is, the source. But it's very interesting to see the dynamic of Tabitha, the reversal that's happening with Tabitha Brown. I won't go too deep, but I do think that there is something that there's a break that's happening in us, in our psychosis, in our pathology, that is up for healing. And we're going to see it keep on coming up. Because it's long overdue, because the truth is we're the mothers of civilization. And if we're this wounded and this broken, if sisterhood is broken, because what we're just talking about was sisterhood.
Yeah.
And so this thing, it is broken right now. And I think that's why we see it coming up the way that it's coming up. We are, some of us also, we don't deal with the psychosis around needing somebody to worship and then also needing to knock them off their pedestal. It literally is a pattern. It is a psychological sickness.
I've seen that firsthand as a publicist. And I remember working with numerous artists from the ground up and seeing the biggest haters of Black women are Black women, and the biggest supporters are Black women. So it's a cycle. But before we go any further than that, speaking of healing, I refuse to have this conversation because I did not want to be in that, right? I did not want to be tearing a sister down. And when I saw this interaction with Khloe and her son, I was disgusted as a mother, right? And as someone that's made different choices. But I was like, I cannot speak. I don't want to get in my personal feelings and speak about that. So I needed to have you here because I did not want to be irresponsible, because this was difficult to watch. So this first clip is Khloe talking to Labrina, who I like very much. But this conversation is hard. So I had to bring in the professional, and this conversation has been amazing. But now we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of why Coach Latonia had to come, because this is just difficult. This is the first clip of 3 that we're going to watch that really deals with a painful a broken relationship between a mother and a son.
And it's like once he got older, it was kind of like he got lost in the whole shuffle of my life. I was pregnant with Nico at 19, and he was my best friend for a long time because I was a single woman. We've been through so much together. Like, he went to college with me to get my master's, and he's literally sat in class with me throughout these times. We did everything together.
You grew up with him, and y'all literally went through life together, Khloe.
Yeah,
y'all went through life together, and it's like, I just feel bad.
I feel like I've forgotten about him along the way, especially with all that we've been through. I kind of overlook him, and that's horrible for me to say, but
I would feel horrible too.
I know that was really low. Just for those that didn't, because I captured that off my television as I was watching it. For those who could not hear, basically Khloe acknowledged that she had her son when she was a teenager, and she was a teen mom, got pregnant, and he was, they did everything together. He was with her when she went to college. He was with her early on because she was single, and he was her best friend. And then we see that she met this man named Noah that eventually passed away. But she said, I feel like I forgot about Nico. And he is there now in her house. And we know, just for the backstory for any of you guys that have not watched the show, he was 24 years old. She said that she had forgotten about him from age 16 to 24. She got married to a man, had twin daughters, and made her life about the man. The man passed away. And a couple of weeks ago, as we're reviewing this show, and she's dating a man that is near the age of her son. And I remember saying, when I saw her son speaking disrespectfully to her, I said, well, I bet the son is dealing with the pain of losing his stepfather, because obviously this man was brought into their lives. She made him, you could tell when she talks about him that he was her world. And he passed away, and then the son stepped up and became the father again. So he was her significant other before. She kind of kicked him to the curb when she got the man, had the babies. She actually acknowledges in this next scene, because I don't know if you guys are going to be able to hear, but I'll still play it, that she forgot about him and she focused totally on her daughters that she had with the new husband. Mm-hmm. At this point, the relationship between her and her son is broken, and she is dating a man that is near the age of her son. I believe he's 1 or 2 years older, if that, than her son.
It's like 4.
It's 4. Okay. Because the son is 24. So he 27, 28.
Yeah.
So she acknowledges to Labrina. And what threw me off, Coach, is that Labrina has tears in her eyes for her son. And Khloe is sitting there, I forgot about him. I did. I haven't said anything. And Labrina says, but does he know that you love him? I don't know. I haven't said anything. I haven't said it. I said, let me bring the coach in because I don't want to say.
She triggered you because of your sacrifice.
Right, but I mean, I just because of motherhood, and I also know, funny, ironically, I remember before I went on Yana, and I'm sure you were there during this time. A colleague of mine, friend of mine, Sasha the Diva, came on the show and had an experience, and Yana got in her behind, and you made your son your husband, and then you kicked him to the curb when you found the new husband, and then there's dissension. But in this situation, Khloe lost the husband and has replaced him with a man close to the son's age. And then the man sat down with her last week and said he needs to man up because he's coming from a position of having no experience and not understanding. So I'm going to just give you the floor.
Okay.
That conversation
let's unpack it a little bit.
Let's unpack it.
Okay. The first thing is that, she grew up with him. So most mothers, people who are nurturing mothers who made sacrifices for their children, are going to judge.
Okay.
But when you are 15 and 16 years old, or even younger, some cases, when a person say they grew up with their mother, that means that they're siblings. They had a sibling relationship oftentimes, not a mother-son. And so a lot of time, and I also know this from men who have mother wounds because of this, who have told me, I grew up with my mother. I don't see her like that. I guarantee you that there was a grandmother somewhere as well, or maybe it wasn't, but in her case, but oftentimes when you grow up together, that's code word for we're like siblings or friends, not mother-daughter.
Okay, gotcha. That's totally different than what I was thinking. Yes.
When you grow, when a woman then grows up with her son, they talk different as well. So even you rating saying he was being disrespectful, no, that there was no hierarchy or establishment of I'm the mother, you're the son, you're my friend.
Okay.
So they've been talking like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now she says that okay, then she this wasn't the first time this young man had to adjust to her getting into a relationship. So let's deal with that. Okay. She got into a relationship, and some of you all picked it up. Somebody says she seems to be all about her man. Mm-hmm. This is a type of woman that is defined by having a man who caters to her man and all of that. So she doesn't even have the consciousness,
right,
of any of this. So now she gets this man and has twin daughters, and she throws all of her attention into that. So that's the second thing that he had to adjust to with his mother. This young man probably felt like he was losing whatever relationship he had with his mother the first time, but the man made a difference because he loved him, he raised him, he respected him.
KC says, does the doctor also feel like Khloe got stuck at the age that she had her son?
Absolutely. You come on with it, KC. That's where I'm going with this. You're dealing with a fine woman, a grown woman, an entrepreneur, and we could take this template and apply it to any of them, but we're not dealing with an emotionally mature woman. That's why she could date this 28-year-old, by the way. Mm-hmm. She's not emotionally mature in that way, and so that's what we're looking at. We're looking at someone who's not emotionally mature. But let's keep going because there's more layers to this. Are you going to show the other clip of the conversation?
Yeah, let me show. This is a clip of a conversation with her and her son. Again, I was unable to respond to, so I'm gonna play this clip and I'm gonna let you keep unpacking. I'm gonna just be
okay.
My boyfriend Jordan told me that I need to be tougher on Nico, but after talking to Latoria, I realized I really need to love on my son, and I don't know how to navigate this journey, and I'm trying to figure it out as I go. But I need to sit down and talk to him. I feel like I wanted to do this because I feel like since you've been grown, we have not hung out. And I feel like I missed that. You know, like I know the 16-year-old Nico. You know, I don't know the 24-year-old Nico. I don't know what you like, what you drink. The fact that you drink is crazy, crazy to me. I was talking to my friend Labrina, and she was basically saying, like, my heart goes out to him because you basically haven't shown him any love, like the love that he needs, you know? And you haven't had no in-depth conversations with him. You just, it's survival mode and going day to day, but not tapping into what's going on around you as far as like my kids, you know?
She said that she knows the 16-year-old him, not the 24. I do want to point out that the entire scene, he had tears in his eyes. They didn't drop, but he had tears in his eyes. And the first thing that he did is to tell her, because she goes on this conversation to say that she put him, he had to take care of everything. Actually, you know what? Let's play this last one.
Yeah.
And then talk about it. Let's play this last one.
Okay.
This got me over the edge.
Sometimes I get angry because I'm thinking like, my son's supposed to take care of me. You know, or he's supposed to be there for me. I don't like the relationship we have. It's not the same no more. That's why I didn't want your little sisters here. I feel like I've made you a caretaker. You're not supposed to be a caretaker at 24. Now, I'm a caretaker, you know, but I depend on you so much. It's kind of like, I don't mind.
He said, I don't mind. In the beginning of that, she said, I get mad because I feel like my son is supposed to take care of me. And that's not what's happening. And I just.
Now that also is a sickness, but I got it. So I'll get to that. That's a real sickness but that's a real thing. I mean, I really applaud women, and you know, Khloe, if you're watching, I applaud the people who are willing to be raw and authentic with their truth, because at the end of the day, this is her truth.
Facts.
And one thing that I will say is I respect the fact that she said, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
She's clueless. She was clueless even with her own friend. Her own friend was her. That's why having good friendships matter, because her friend was able to tell her the truth. If you got friends that you can't tell the truth, or they shut down on you, quit speaking to you, because these are scenarios that happen for a lot of women who have a lot of authority things, leadership. You don't necessarily have to be an entrepreneur to be a leader or the one responsible. And a lot of times, people can't tell us anything. So the fact that her friend could honestly say that to her, I appreciated that.
But can I just say, Coach Latonia, and I'm not trying to be the hater in the room, but I feel like out of the friend group, Labrina is the most accomplished. She got the NFL husband. She's got the palatial mansion. And Khloe said, I feel like Labrina is my person. She has this soft life. She comes up to see her, and Labrina's outside pushing her daughter on the swing. And she says, wow, you really do have this soft life, and I'm out here struggling. So, and I like Labrina very much. I think Labrina is very mature. She's gone through some trauma also. She reminds me a lot of my girlfriend, Shay. She's very grounded.
She reminds me of Shay, yes.
Yeah, she's like Shay. Beautiful, but hey, she got substance, and that's the friend that I call, and she's not going to sugarcoat it, and it comes from a real place. But I trust Shay because I know her heart. I feel like in this show, Labrina is positioned to be like, a lot of times we idolize what we want to be. And when Khloe walked up and she sees, I mean, Labrina's spread is beautiful, and she has all the things. And she's like, you really are doing it. When they went to her spot, oh my God, Labrina has all this. So I hope that she's listening to Labrina because Labrina is wise, not just because of what she has. So I did feel it was a little strange that Khloe did listen and kind of humbled herself in the presence of Labrina, and we've seen her be the opposite with the other ladies. So
absolutely. Well, there are women, and this is a problem. There are women who can only listen to women who have more than them.
That part.
And that's not sincere.
That's not sincere. Right.
So, but at least in this purpose, for all intents and purposes, she heard the truth from her friend for whatever her motivation was.
Right.
But the problem once again was, one, she did entirely too much talking. She did not ask a question, then let him answer. Ask a question, let him answer. You listen. She went in with a presentation, and she did all of the directing of the conversation. Even though she did some disclosure, when did he have a voice to say anything? Did she to let him tell her in detail? And the other thing and we do this with our men, y'all. We do this with our men. Let me go in and tell you what I thought about or what I'm feeling. And then she didn't ask, what do you need from me? Mm. She made a decision. I need to hang out with you more. Still friendship mindset.
Let's drink. Let's get a drink together.
I don't know what your drink is. Friendship, immature mindset. And then but what she said, I need to love on my son. And this is chronic in Black women households that are single. We think that now I got to love on him more, that's going to correct it for a grown man. That is problematic. And that can also be where women get emotionally blackmailed by their sons. Now that's a real dynamic from little bitty babies emotionally blackmailing mom. You cave in for the boy, that type of thing. But we're not there yet. Let's just deal with
take it slowly.
The overcorrection. I'm gonna love on my son means now because she even said it with the guy. I gotta put him on the back burner. The guy, when she asked Nico, he said he wanted more studio time.
He did.
Okay. He didn't say nothing about spending no time with her.
He did not. He's 24. You could not make, he said he wanted to be in the studio and that was his goal.
That's what he wanted to do. And she said, okay, well, I'll fund it. Another way that we overcompensate is, okay, I wasn't there. So now I have guilt. So I'm going to try to supply you with the material things. I will, it's so interesting that sometimes we don't understand that what your grown children need or offspring. Iyanla said, don't call your grown children your grown, children. Don't call them children. Call them your offspring to help even make a mental shift when they're grown.
Yeah.
Because she has an opportunity to now have a relationship with the grown man, but she's going in to try to mother the
so
grown.
What did she do, Coach Latonia? I need you to take it back because she said, I forgot about you. And you were, hearing that and him hearing that, he's sitting there with, I understand that they were siblings, but how do we forget him? And then after the husband passes, she said, I get mad because I expect my son should take care of me. What is that?
Selfish. Is, and I don't want to put a stereotype on anything or anybody, but sometimes there are certain women, certain types of women, certain phenotypes of women that don't have to do much but show up. They don't have to think. They don't have to be emotionally available. All they have to do is look pretty. There's not much depth to them. We don't know her story, but it's possible that she hasn't had to be present for anybody else, except for when she was a single mom. And so this is no shade to any single mom. She was a young person trying to do it the way that she knew how to do it. I don't even think had Nico been given the opportunity to respond to how it felt that you forgot about me.
Yeah, that he did not. She just drove right past it. And he, like I said, he had tears in his eyes, and she went from, I forgot about you, I focused on my girls, and she acknowledged that she didn't even think that he would also be dealing with the death of No. She didn't even, she said, so do you think you had some mental issues? And he said, yes.
Yeah, he did. He owned it, but I think they need grief therapy. That's my answer. They when this type of thing is happened. So there's a couple things that also that I want to, in all fairness, when you have trauma, you can check out. You're not present. You could be functioning but not present.
Right.
We don't know what trauma she had.
Right.
Being a single mom, who helped her, who didn't help her. But then now she loses her sustenance, her husband. You can check out when you have grief for long periods of time. A person can be high functioning, but they are not present for years. I have coached people, counseled people, prayed with people who have tools and skills just like me, who until they got in the presence of people who could see something they couldn't see, didn't realize that they were grieving for sometimes some people 15 years, not present, not even in their body aware. It is possible for that to happen when you are grieving. You think you are present. You think you are making decisions, and you are not making healthy decisions, because a lot of times we don't give people space to fully grieve and express themselves, especially if you're the strong friend.
Yeah. Yeah. And her energy up until this episode has been the in your face, I'm gonna tell it like I don't care. Like, and she said that she's just been surviving. But it also comes with a hardened shell to where, in addition to Nico, I don't think she really was paying a lot of attention to how anybody around her felt. The girls,
exactly,
because of them being the left, what she has left of No. But even the way she interacted with her friends, you know, that first dinner where we see her say, in that very first episode, we see her say to Elena, he's not fine. Then she brings the young man.
Yes, she did.
To the party and says, basically like showing him off. Like, this is a representation of what I can do, right? This is the man. I know nobody said Jordan ain't fine. Jordan looks like he's attractive, but he also looks like a boy. Like he's a boy. So I think that it's weird because we see her saying all this stuff, but she was definitely not empathetic to anyone else's issues until now. We see her saying, I didn't know. And even the way she's interacting with Nico, she doesn't seem very empathetic to him, saying, I just forgot about you.
Right.
Like, girl, what you talking to your baby like that? Like,
and she's still not thinking about this man that she's dating, because she just said, I'm gonna put him on the back burner. That's not solution. And he actually, I want to cover catch this part. He actually was not wrong when he told her that she needed to do a few things with him. He wasn't wrong. He just didn't have all the information. He didn't know all the information. Who knows what his response would have been, because all he's looking at is this. That's right.
Not the fact that she basically forgot about it. And so he's looking at, she's a mother and a 24-year-old is living in the house, speaking to, but not, you really opened my eyes with that sibling thing, because I do see, my first thought was, why is he talking to her like that? But now that I'm thinking back to that scene, she did not seem surprised or outraged at his.
Not at all. She was just upset because he wouldn't talk to her. He would leave the room when she came in.
And really, she was upset. Can we just be honest? Her real problem is that he doesn't want to accept this new boy, this new man. She said, that's unacceptable that he has a problem with who I date. It's none of his business who I date. He shouldn't have that. That's her issue. And that's why they're not speaking, because he doesn't like the fact that she's dating someone that's so close in age to him. And she feels like it's none of his business. But then when she takes us back, we see that everything was his business up until No stepped in. And she still wanted him to take care of her after he died. You supposed to take care of me until now.
And
I date somebody now, don't take care of me anymore. Now,
he's
get out of the
taking
way.
care of his siblings too.
Yeah.
So that it's a lot going on, because in order for her to be with this guy, we don't know how much time her son has had to step in so that she could be with this guy. That could have been how the problem started. He might have an issue with any man with him having to be there, and he wants to be in the studio. But I mean, when two people are grieving and upset, one thing in particular can become the trauma or the catalyst.
Yeah.
And I agree, Mo Catchings, you're right. He probably is tired, but at the same time, it seems like he said, I don't mind, because
it's not like he feels like, because I feel like, and I experienced this. I think I talked to you about this back when I was sharing all my issues. But my son was 9 when I got divorced, and I remember him saying he felt like he had to be the man of the house, right? I didn't tell him that, but he felt like that just innately. So we know that. So watching Nico, he's watching her. He has tears in his eyes, but he's catering to her. I don't mind. I know he's not ever acknowledged. At least we don't see, because we don't see the edit. But he's automatically trying to stand up and be, well, I had to take care of him if I wasn't there. And then she says, well, if you weren't there, I don't know what would have happened.
Exactly. That tells, that right there speaks volumes. And that's something that we call in psychology the parentified child. You become the child that is raising your siblings, carrying the responsibility, and that is another form of, it does cause long-term trauma for grown men later on. And I have had some very strong alpha men who didn't realize how angry they were with their mother for passing that on to them, particularly when the mother is the sibling and was not there. I want to go back to something. Just because they're siblings does not mean that at some point that child will feel abandoned when you're not there. So we don't know at what point he started to manage his, like, if I do this, then I'll have my mama's love or his attention, her attention. If I do this, even if it's unconscious, this is how the parentified child gets looped into holding more responsibility
than the parent.
As a parent.
Do you also think, because it feels like she said, I got mad because my son should be taking care of me. And it feels like he should also, because it seemed like in that conversation, he never wanted to accuse her of anything. He never wanted to point the finger at her. Even when he's disappointed in the situation of the house, when I felt like he was being disrespectful, he left. He was like, I don't want to be here. He never confronts her and says, you ain't taking care of you. It's like, I really am trying to, I'm also giving her an out. Like, it's all like coddling her bad behavior also, because really he could have said, yeah, man, that's you. It's been rough. He never said that. He said, I don't mind. I'm okay. Well,
I wonder if that's absolutely the truth, because he said that in that moment, but he wasn't asked a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And clearly he is upset. He was upset, and we don't know how soon that started. But we also know that Khloe has a mouth. So we've seen her mouth when it comes to other people. Then there's no telling how she's used it at home. And this type of energy, a woman, let's say prototype, can be emasculating very early to a young boy. That's, so she can be, and not intentionally, y'all.
Not intentionally, absolutely.
Not intentionally.
It's interesting because there's another show that we've talked about on here. I do a review of King's Court. And also Thaddeus, who was this, very successful wrestler, had talked about his mom and her. I'm sorry, that was the wrong clip. There was a picture of Khloe that was just, she has been this beautiful woman, right? And so she doesn't look her age. She is very beautiful. And so that could be where I get away with a lot of this, but I don't have to really answer for it because I don't have to show up.
Right.
But Vegas actually talked about his mom having him at 14 or 15 being raped, and then them being siblings. He didn't say that word, but he was like kind of grew up together, and a lot of anger towards her. So in the show, and I don't want to get into that show, we see him being very confrontational with women, like testing them.
Oh my God.
I mean, he is going in. So I'm wondering, Coach Latonia, what does that, when there is a sibling relationship with the mom and a son specifically, and there's no accountability, what does that look like later? Because this man is extremely successful, right? But and he's also able to articulate things that, but they're just evident in his behavior. There's still a lot of pain, and he's created patterns because he's been successful and he's able to do it. So what does that end? How does that end up when the mother does that to the son, and that relationship is dysfunctional? What does that look like later when he's trying to be in relationship with women?
Oh, an excessive amount of holding women responsible for every little thing that they do, and so because you can't hold your mother responsible, so now in the little boy's mind, everything a woman does. I'm gonna tell y'all something, ladies. Be very mindful of an extremely critical man. He either has a mother wound like that, or oftentimes his sexuality should be questioned. Because when it's chronic criticism, there's something going on, and there's a wound. And usually when a man is that critical of women and he's articulate and he's picking you apart like that, it's going to be very difficult to please that kind of man. Because the hole in his heart is the size of his own mother.
My God.
But for this man, no, when you're talking about somebody who was raped, I know we're not on that show, but we did mention it. So somebody who was raped, they have so deep in their cells that I am wrong. Who I am is, and I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
So I got to make everything right. That's why he was attracted to the doctor. So you notice that Miss Perfect and triggered by Miss Perfect.
Well, every single woman he's attracted to, he's triggered by. I'm gonna do that review later on tonight. Yes. Wow. So speaking of this, so you mentioned Khloe's way of handling this was, I'm gonna spend more time. And I think, for me, listening, when you hear that, you do think he's 24, but he lives with her. So how does she make it right? What is the healthy way of fixing this to where you're not allowing him to emotionally blackmail you and just become his puppet, but you are able to start writing that relationship or healing that pain? Because 16, he's not there anymore. But how do you go back and validate that? Or is there even even the ability to do that?
Yes, she can. The first thing she has to do is take the responsibilities that she has left on him. She has to take it. She has to free up his time to send the message like, thank you for what you've done. I appreciate what you've done for your sisters. But that means that she has to step in or hire somebody else to do it. If she's an entrepreneur, a boss chick, like she said, then, get a tutor to come in to do the homework with the girls, but free up his time. Allow him to go and do that. And I don't think it's anything wrong with her investing a few things into the studio. But maybe she also can, if she knows business, maybe she can have a conversation about how he sets up his business. In other words, meet him at the level of his interest. His interest right now is music. Her concern is, what do you do if? They could easily meet there and grow from that. But I do think that they do also, as a family, need grief therapy.
Yeah.
And he possibly even needs sessions alone to process. I think that could be a tremendous gift for him to be able to process alone, find his voice.
Yeah.
because he may not even know what he's holding. He's only 24.
And that probably does not. It is, how should she, or how would you suggest that she set boundaries? Because I know it can be difficult. I mean, I think most of us who have been single moms at some point, you do feel a certain amount of guilt because of that situation. And so I found it difficult to set boundaries, but also to love and say, I want to support you, but I'm also not supporting a 25-year-old man. I have to enable you to stand on your own, but I do want to be supportive. So how can she do that, specifically now that this relationship has been broken? So he doesn't trust her probably, in that way. So how can she set boundaries that are healthy and still show him love?
The boundaries for herself?
Well, the boundaries I'm really talking about how much, because she's talking about she'll just fund it. And I just see that can be, as we know in the music industry, that could be a never ending.
Exactly. So the boundary, I think has to be, I'll do so much. Like I'll put some seed money into this, and this will be a great negotiation for her to consider. I'll give you more if you set up your business in this way. You do that. You learn how to do something like that's a real teaching opportunity, an opportunity to partner and that type of thing. But I also think that this thing where I'm going to put him on the back burner, her significant other on the back burner. I wonder if there should also be a boundary where your children don't know all of that, who you're dating and what you're doing. Like, I'm going on a date and that's that. I don't stop my life. He's going to have to deal with the fact that she does want to date, and who she dates, what age she dates is her business. That is something for them that right there is where they need to have a boundary conversation. And this is where it does relate more to a lot of women who have made their son their husband or man, and there's some jealousy or he thinks that he has some input. And so I think that there's some refinement needs to happen for her own maturity first. And then it needs to be communicated to her son.
Watching the interaction between her and Jordan, the young man that she's dating, and we see that they are Instagram famous. He is attractive, she's attractive, they look good together. She's very focused on that. But watching that interaction, I was thinking, like, all the things that she said that she wasn't worried about, she appears worried about. Like, she takes him to a place and people are like, oh, there's nothing wrong with going to a game. No, but she said, well, I come here because he likes to play. Okay. Then she was like, well, are you still going to like me when I'm older?
Oh, yeah. That was
so crazy. All the things that you said when in front of your friends that you're not, here he is, he's fine. You really are insecure because the conversation with him showed all those things that she claimed that she was not worried about dating this man 17 years younger than her, that she is. So to me, that seemed like a very unhealthy relationship. It seems like something that she's doing because of the look. Here, I'm able to still get this man who looks like this. That validates me looking like this, and but it's like, but when you actually see them talking across the table, he spoke his mind. She was in tears the whole time, and she was insecure about the 17-year difference. So I'm wondering, is that really a healthy relationship?
Well, the answer to that. And guess what? She would be unhealthy in any age. Right. Responding like that, because that wasn't about how old he was. Wisdom came out of him, or truth. Let's just say that he spoke his truth, and you break down crying the first time. That's not an age issue. That's a maturity issue. And so yes, any relationship she would be in, I think that there will be some support she needs about her insecurities.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate this. We have gone a little long. This has been an hour and 30 minutes. And Coach Latonia, I appreciate you getting to the meat. We have gotten to the meat of all of this. I just, before we get out of here, I'd love to have you. What did you think of this episode overall? we saw a lot with Elena and her mom. That was very, very touching. Even Latoria and Munira's conversation. There's still a lot of pain on both sides there. And then, of course, the bulk of this was focused on Khloe and her conversation with Labrina. And Labrina even acknowledges her own pain. That's what I really like about her. She before she got even into Khloe's situation, she acknowledged her situation with her son Pop. She's not happy about that, but she's doing everything she can. She's very, very transparent about that. Overall, what was the message that you got from this episode, and what are you hoping that the viewers, continue to see with Heart and Hustle?
I like that they are having real life conversations that's beyond just about meeting out, like what we see with the other franchises, meeting up for dinner, dressing up and brunch and all of that. Like, are we over that yet? Because so I like this because it does get us talking about these things for ourselves, and it puts it in your face. It's so easy to look at other people's lives, but I guarantee you one of these scenarios can knock on your own front door, if not all of them, depending on the size of your family. So I like that. I like that it's not perfect. I love the imperfectness of this particular series so far. And let's see how deep they go, and if they're going to change up. It should be very interesting to see Heart and Soul. I think that there are some other people that they all need therapists. When they all need a little coaching, a little support. Somebody else said Bell Collective in Houston. That's what somebody said early. This is just the Bell Collective in Houston, but
I think it actually goes a little deeper than.
I think it's deeper than Bell Collective. Even Bell Collective did not give us the heart of the matter when we first came in. We bumped into it, but
we're still bumping because it's not good. It's still bumping. It's not good. We see the premiere for this season that Glenn is still cheating. Like, it's just, it won't, because they're not ready, right? So it can't move forward. We see a lot of the same situations, no movement, no growth, no maturity in a lot of these. In the situation with Latrice, who I love, her and she wants to keep everything inside, even though it's clear that there's issues with the much older husband. Letitia, watching her, and I get it, because when you've only been with one person your whole life, hell, you could have been with different people. You're married, you don't want to get out of the marriage. You're afraid of what's on the other side of it, but what's inside of it is not serving you. Glenn is for the streets, and she knows that, but she's not ready. She's not ready. And so, as my grandmother said, when you get enough, you'll stop.
Okay.
But if you get enough, you'll stop.
You don't want to get down off the cross yet. So you just will stay up there martyring yourself. But some people love the pain, addicted to pain. Trust and believe that there are women who are successful, who are pain addicts. And it just shows up different.
Yeah.
And sometimes the reason for the success is to avoid the truth of the pain.
Yeah.
Everybody's success is not motivated because they were such a much, or it's highly intelligent. Sometimes your poverty, your pain motivates you, and you never want to be there. So
most of the time, I think that's most of us. And that's what I talked about in my book, is what created that alpha, what created that overachiever. She's running from something. There's trauma, and she, that comes out through being high achieving, to run and not deal with whatever that is. So I think I can't speak about other communities because that's not where my heart lies, but for us, I think most of the women that I interact with, most of that overachieving energy comes from a very painful place.
Very painful.
Creativity comes from a painful place, and then if you're able to get to that success, and that success gives you access to people like yourself, people like Miss Yama Van Zandt, then that's great, or even therapists, or the idea to get to therapy. Because if you're in that painful trauma, you don't even realize that you need therapy. That's not something that's available to you in that darkness.
Right.
You know, you have to get to a certain level of success or out of that in order to realize, oh, wait a minute, I need this, you know. So, but I would suggest that most of it is motivated by, I got to get out of, I'm running from this, you know, something that creates that.
Yes, I agree 100%. I do. It's an opportunity, though, for all of us who are watching to not just be entertained by the pain. And really, Yama used to always say this, even when you were watching Fix My Life. How can you apply this to your life? If you're a woman with a son, you should be saying, wait a minute, did I participate in this? Or if you have a brother, or, if you have a girlfriend, do I have girlfriends that I see something going on? Because I know circles where the women cannot tell each other the truth about bad behavior.
Mm-hmm. I like those circles. I want out of those circles. My circle, first of all, you will tell me the truth from the beginning. Like I said, Shay, Melissa, the small circle of women that I have are women that they tell me the truth and I value. But I also have women that I respect. That I'm like, some women I'd be like, girl, we don't have to be perfect, but these are women that are trying to be better and are trying to elevate. So I know whatever they're telling me is not rooted in jealousy or
absolutely
their own pain, right? Because I've given friends in the midst of my own heartbreak, share it with them how you're wrong. He's not wrong. You're wrong. You are the problem. And knowing that my own situation is broken, and not a lot of women will do that. A lot of women, if they're miserable, they want you to be single. I don't want you to be happy in a relationship when I'm not happy in my relationship. So
right.
I don't have those type of women around me.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So I love your audience. They're using all of you. You all have been having some great talks. I've seen some real psychological terms.
Okay, they're intellectually advanced.
I love your audience.
We have fun here, but Coach Latonia, let people know, for those that most of them here know you because you've been here several times. Yeah. And they know if I've done something like this, I literally was like, nah, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to touch this review by myself. Let people know where they can find you and where they can, hear more about what you have going on.
Okay, sure. Listen, if you're on IG or if you're here on YouTube, even take a minute and just go to Rebirth with Latonia on all platforms, but particularly IG, TikTok, and YouTube, whatever your thing is, and follow me and go to a picture and let me know that you came here from Christal so we can be family.
The XO family. Well, Coach Latonia, I want to say thank you for taking time on your Monday. You did not hesitate. I hit her when I was watching. I was like, I don't want to do this. Can you step in? And what day can you do it? And she immediately agreed. And so I appreciate, I appreciate your impact on my life. I appreciate our friendship and the fact that you always show up. And if you ever need anything from me, you don't even have to ask. You just tell me.
That's why I say yes to you if I'm available to do it. And I love this community as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, we will definitely be sharing this, and you share this with your audience. I'm going to cut up some clips because I think that episode really needs to be shared. Some clips from tonight, just for some healing, and the fact that if Khloe or someone that knows her does see this, we wanted to make sure that we operated in sisterhood and did not judge and allowed for real healing and growth. And I hope that she continues on that journey. So
yes.
So yeah. All right. Again, thank you, Coach. Right. I'll be in touch. You already know.
Yes. Thank you. Have a good one, you all.
All right. Good night. All right. Yes. Thank you guys for hanging out. Tonight's review was a little long, but we had a lot to get into. It is about, I think it's about 9:40. And you guys know King's Court. The review for King's Court is coming up at 10 o'clock. So go get you a snack, take a bathroom break, do what you need to do, and meet me right back here at 10 o'clock as we get into King's Court. We had an amazing episode of Heart and Hustle. I'm going to give that episode an 8.5. because I think it was a powerful episode. It did trigger me as a former single mom to see a mother making those, admissions, but I did not have Coach Latonia's perspective of that has always been more of a sibling type relationship, than a mother-son. And that gave me a lot of understanding and allows me to show grace and empathy for that. So I appreciate you guys for hanging out, always doing what you do in the chat. Make sure that you like this discussion and share it with somebody. I think this was specifically when Coach Latonia comes on, that's a professional perspective that she, graces us with. So please share this with someone that may need to hear what she had to say tonight. And like I said, go ahead and share, and then meet me right back here in 19 minutes for the King's Court review on Rumor Has It. This past episode, we're going to get into Thaddeus. We're going to get into Tyson and talk a little bit about Carlos and his lady. So you guys, I'm going to see you guys right back here. Check out, go use the bathroom, get your stuff. Be back here at 10 o'clock for King's Court. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Like this on the way out.